Right now, I want to bring in Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He's a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. He's a combat veteran, lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air National Guard, who served over there. Congressman, President Biden says he stands by his decision that there was never going to be a good time to withdraw from Afghanistan. He wasn't willing to force this war on another generation. What was your reaction to his speech today? He spoke for about 18 minutes.
I thought it was a terrible speech. It was a speech that, to me, seemed like was focused on stemming the upcoming political fallout from his decision and from this disaster. And Wolf, we are being filled and inundated right now with people and the Republicans and the Democrats pointing fingers at who's to blame for this. I'm going to say something that probably most politicians don't say. The Republicans have failed you, and the Democrats have failed you. The last president failed you on Afghanistan, and this one is failing you on Afghanistan. Because the last one cut a terrible deal when the Secretary of State stood with the now president of Afghanistan under the Taliban and released 5,000 Taliban prisoners. President Biden had an opportunity to right that wrong. President Biden should understand that the chaos you're seeing now is just the beginning of what Afghanistan is going to be. And that the vast majority of combat operations, all these people that are saying the Afghan military melted away, they were doing all of the fighting. In 2014, we basically said, we'll do the logistics and the air support if you do the ground combat. And the Afghans were fighting on the ground. But the second the United States abandoned them, I mean, even faster than our European allies who are like, you're leaving right now, wait a second. When any military loses logistics and it loses air support, you can't expect them to necessarily stay and fight. I wish they'd have fought more. But the president's speech today was aimed at stemming political bleeding, and it was not the kind of leadership that we need in a president that, frankly, has been lacking both in the last administration and now this one.
The President Biden, did admit this unfolded a lot more quickly than he had anticipated. I assume he's referring to U.S. intelligence as well. How hard is it, Congressman, for veterans like yourself to see those desperate scenes at the Kabul Airport? And let me show that picture once again of more than 600 Afghans inside that U.S. military C-17 cargo plane. You're in the Air National Guard. Have you ever seen a cargo plane filled with so many hundreds of desperate people simply seeking to save their lives?
No, I certainly haven't. I hope there's awards that are going to go to the crew of that C-17 because they violated basically every Air Force regulation in packing that many people in there. And in the long run, that's going to end up saving a lot of people's lives. How did this get so mismanaged? I don't understand. Keep in mind, Wolf, just a few months ago, we shut down Bagram Air Force Base. Bagram was a secure military installation with a gigantic airfield. Can you imagine if we still had that? We vacated that in the middle of the night. We surprised the Afghans when they woke up and we were gone. If we had that and we could now be processing the CIV applicants through that, or the thousands of Americans, by the way, that are stuck behind Taliban lines and can't even get to the airport, United States citizens that are stuck behind the lines being told to shelter in place because they have no way to get to the airport at this moment, this would be very different. So look, the decision to withdraw, I disagree with. But regardless where we are at the moment, the president needs to make it very clear to the Taliban that they've never defeated us on the battlefield once. They will never defeat us on the battlefield, and they will allow us to extricate every American and every Afghan that was deserving of American visa now, and they will not challenge us. That's the kind of leadership, because trust me, Wolf, the Taliban knows that they cannot match us. They did, however, crush our will to fight. That's the only way they won.
Americans have been told, Congressman, as you well know, for nearly 20 years, that the U.S. could build a nation, build a military in Afghanistan, but only to see the country collapse in about a week, in a few hours, if you will, in the capital of Kabul. How do you grapple with that?
Well, look, it's certainly devastating. And there's a lot of, points in the past where we've been misled, or we thought we had a much larger optimistic outlook of what Afghanistan was. But before we look and just say that was totally failed, as I saw H.R. McMaster's earlier say, look at the freedom that is being deprived from the Afghan people as the Taliban move into into parts of Afghanistan now, and you know how much freedom they had. Look at the number of women that are out there making careers, that are, thought leaders, that are academics, that never would have happened under the Taliban leadership. Look at the fact that there were 300,000 Afghan military that were fighting the Taliban hard on the battlefield, simply with U.S. intelligence and air power to support them. Yes, there were a lot of challenges, and yes, we might have needed to be there for longer. We're in a lot of countries, look, particularly even in places like Kosovo. But the devastation you're seeing today is why that a small footprint of 2,500 U.S. troops was so important, because we have dozens of jihadist groups in Afghanistan anyway. Now they're going to thrive, grow, plan. And beyond that, what is this saying to our allies right now and to our enemies? Because America does not look very strong right now, and when we look weak, that's when people challenge us.
And one of the things the Taliban is immediately doing as they take over the capital, take over the country, is going to the prisons, opening the doors and releasing thousands of Taliban fighters and al-Qaeda terrorists who have been held in those prisons, and they are now free, and they're potentially capable of getting a lot of U.S. weaponry that has been left there on the ground because the Afghan military simply walked away and collapsed. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thanks as usual for joining us. And as I always tell you, thanks so much for your service to the U.S. military and to the American people. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Wolf.
All right.